And what is really going on behind the scenes of these operations?
For him, it's just an element. It's a show, but his goals are completely different.
Iran, yes, maybe not symmetrically, but decisively and proportionally as they promise, could strike back.
He's a rather cheap showman from the boulevard, simply taking your money out of your pockets.
This is the second episode of the Extraction podcast where, together with our special guest, we discuss everything happening in the world, or more precisely, the details that may be hidden from the public eye, between the lines and beyond. A vast network of contacts and experience participating perhaps in similar operations and so on give our guest the right to discuss in detail what is happening in the world today, not just according to the headlines of global publications. Hello? Good afternoon.
Former graduate of the Academy of Foreign Intelligence, the elite training institution of the Soviet Foreign Intelligence Service. During his government service, he was involved in the planning and execution of special operations. After leaving state service, he relocated abroad and has since worked with private corporations specializing in the collection and analysis of sensitive intelligence, as well as in providing strategic security support for business operations in high-risk and conflict-prone regions.
In the very first episode of our podcast, we engaged in a detailed discussion regarding how a full-scale military operation, a ground operation in Iran, was considered to be extremely unlikely at that particular time. At the same time now, numerous global publications, various insiders, and multiple sources are currently saying that Trump might still go ahead and launch strikes against Iran. Yes, airstrikes are still a bit different as far as I understand, but at the same time, there will be a strike. 40% of the fleet, if I'm not mistaken, has now been moved to the shores of Iran. And Trump mentioned 10 to 15 days. Well, he also said 2 to 3 weeks about the war in Ukraine. But that's a digression, not for now. Although it has now already been 4 long years since the initial outbreak of the war in Ukraine, since Russia's full-scale invasion of the sovereign nation. So what's happening in Iran right now? Here is all of the latest information, right at the beginning of the week starting February 23rd, 2026. What exactly do you know about this situation? What are your sources saying? And what is happening around Iran right now? What kind of escalation is taking place?
Good afternoon once again. Good afternoon to our esteemed viewers. Indeed, at our last meeting with you, we devoted quite a considerable amount of attention and focus to the issue surrounding the situation regarding and around Iran. And you are absolutely right when you say that there is a rather high probability of strikes being carried out against Iran. Iran is preparing for this. This is in principle obvious. This is evident from a number of sources. Simultaneously, and at this very moment, I would first of all like to offer a much more detailed explanation so that I am interpreted with absolute precision. When we talk about a full-scale invasion, we are referring, first and foremost, I am referring to a ground operation. What is currently being discussed now, and essentially what almost everyone is predicting, is formally referred to as an offensive air operation in standard military terminology. That is, it means carrying out airstrikes, missile and bomb attacks on Iranian territory without actually entering its territory. That is to say, military aircraft will attack designated strategic targets, while cruise missiles and so on will strike various types of critical infrastructure facilities. But even in this case, even if the aircraft are forced to enter Iranian airspace, they will return to their bases outside of Iran. And here it is particularly important to understand when we hear in the news, invasion, invasion, invasion. When we talk about invasion, first and foremost we mean the direct presence of foreign troops on someone else's territory. Troops, military equipment. Read it literally from the word invasion. Yes, of course, entering a country's airspace with military aircraft, specifically combat aviation, is also considered an element of invasion. In fact, it's an aerial invasion. But this is not, strictly speaking, a full-scale or complete invasion. Secondly, a typical invasion usually takes place with specific and clearly defined strategic objectives. Namely, these involve large-scale territorial seizure or forced regime change. And in this particular case, we see neither of those things in terms of the Trump administration's stated intentions. In fact, he is quite satisfied with the current regime as it stands. It's just that this regime, he is not appearing to be quite as willing to negotiate in Trump's eyes as the former president would ideally like to see. Therefore, when I talk about a zero probability of invasion, I am referring specifically to a ground operation, that is, to a comprehensive and full-scale military action, a military invasion of Iran. At the same time, I would note that the likelihood of airstrikes, that is, an aerial offensive operation, is actually significantly higher than many might expect. But let's wait and see. I want to draw your attention to the fact that, in my professional opinion, the overall likelihood of such strikes has indeed increased after the recent decision of the Supreme Court of the United States regarding the various tariffs imposed by Donald Trump, specifically his aggressive tariff war tactics. I want to take a moment to remind you that last week the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, by a majority vote of 6-3, officially ruled and declared that all of Donald Trump's actions concerning the implementation of trade tariffs were illegal. As of last week, one of the states had already filed a lawsuit against the 47th President Trump personally for more than $8 billion. That is, he has to return $1,500 to every family in the state. In total, Trump, using his rhetorical claims that he was imposing tariffs supposedly to improve the well-being of his citizens, in reality, did so by embedding these costs into taxes and extracting them as taxes from those same U.S. citizens. If you add it all up, according to various analysts' estimates, you could say that he emptied the pockets of American citizens by more than $140 billion over the period during which the tariffs were in effect. In other words, Trump's reputation and ego suffered a very serious blow for the first time during his entire term. Moreover, after Trump's retaliatory statements, he was, to put it mildly, quite offended. The following questions arise, namely, questions concerning. Regarding our topic, yes, Iran, not in the literal sense of the word, but indeed the population of the United States, as well as the American government and the American nation as a whole, truly perceive Iran as a threat. And overall, there is an understanding, yes, an understanding of the issue, that this threat, one way or another, must be contained, if not eliminated. And indeed, Iran. This is a highly sensitive and critical issue for the vital national security interests and strategic priorities of the United States regarding uranium enrichment and the potential long-term risk of developing nuclear weapons. However, according to a variety of different sources, at this particular moment in time, due to an increasingly difficult and complex situation within the United States itself, related to the actions taken by Donald Trump, and the presence of enormous problems. The MAGA movement, like most Republicans, to put it mildly, are deeply skeptical and largely unsupportive of any idea regarding military intervention, particularly in Iran or anywhere else for that matter. This is primarily because the pressing domestic challenges within the United States are currently very serious, including significant financial ones, and already now, quite serious questions for Trump. Why was it necessary to spend insane amounts of money to bring in 2 entire fleets, let's say, to the shores of Iran, to redeploy a huge number of aircraft and support personnel? All of this costs money, and not a small amount. Given the context of the Supreme Court's significant recent judicial ruling, when, essentially speaking, Donald Trump is now obliged to return to taxpayers an amount of about $140 billion, if we're talking about all the states of the United States of America. And I think this, in fact, could potentially provoke and motivate Trump to make the final decision to carry out these airstrikes. Otherwise, it would simply be impossible for Trump to explain to the American people, to the citizens of his own nation, such massive expenses for the strategic deployment and positioning of such a large number of forces. It would simply be impossible to explain it only by saying that it was done to make the Iranian authorities more open and willing to engage in diplomatic negotiations. Hardly, barely, such an explanation would satisfy. Neither the United States Congress, nor the citizens of the United States, nor both of the major political parties. That is why I believe that this significantly increases the likelihood of missile and bomb strikes to be very high. But a full-scale invasion, I remain convinced, is out of the question. Such a possibility is zero.
What forces are currently represented by the United States in Iran, and what could the airstrikes look like if Trump does decide to go through with them? Let me remind you, we're talking about real traders' money right now. Prediction markets indicate that there will be no strikes before February 28th, with 81 to 82% believing so, but the probability of a strike before March to April is already at 36 to 41%. So, taking everything into account, by the end of this current year, 70 to 73% of industry insiders and professional market traders believe that the likelihood of a strike is highly probable. 70 to 73%. And let's not forget about the specific deadline previously set by Donald Trump, although it remains quite difficult to take his words as being completely reliable. It's hard to take some of his statements seriously, but he did give Iran 10 to 15 days. So what could this strike look like?
There will be massive aerial assaults utilizing a fleet of airborne carriers. That is, combat aviation. There will certainly be a series of coordinated strikes involving high-precision cruise missiles and advanced combat drones. Furthermore, we absolutely should not discount the critical role of key allies in the region, specifically the primary U.S. ally in this area, Israel, which is highly likely to join these offensive attacks alongside the United States of America, thereby significantly increasing the overall destructive impact on the ground. At the same time, one of the primary reasons why such massive military forces and extensive resources are being deployed right now is undoubtedly the strategic presence and power of the naval fleet. The United States and its Air Force, which are currently stationed at forward operating bases, will also have to, in addition to defending their own facilities, home bases, and aircraft carriers, primarily meaning those located on the Folian Islands, as well as their combat ships. These forces will assist Israel in its strategic efforts to repel what will undoubtedly be significant retaliatory strikes from Iran, assuming that in the initial wave of attacks, those strikes are not fully neutralized. This involves targeting key Iranian military facilities, specifically those critical sites responsible for carrying out such strikes.
In your opinion, why might all of these events be happening, and what is really going on behind the scenes of these operations? And still, how will the situation change after the strikes, if they do happen, and how exactly is it developing right now? So what will be the most fundamental differences?
As for how the situation is developing now, we can all basically see it. On the one hand, America is building up its strike force to carry out attacks on Iran. On the other hand, there are active, let's say, negotiations underway, active contacts with the Iranian side, with representatives of neighboring countries to Iran, with Arab leaders, with leaders of several Arab states. And there are very extensive consultations taking place, which are not being made public into the broader public sphere, but it is clear and obvious that they are happening very intensively. This is what is happening right now. It's important to understand that Donald Trump is far from the bold, decisive person he would like to appear to be. And even if, let's say, he actually makes the decision to use military force in some location, from my own personal perspective, first and foremost, I can't help but say He's a rather cheap showman from the boulevard, who is quite used to, let's say, creating some flashy and eye-catching effects to distract the public's attention, while at the same time quietly solving his own personal issues, simply taking your money out of your pockets. Therefore, if he does decide to do something, in his view, it should be very quick and flashy. So that, first and foremost, it would look good on Fox News, and he could boast that he won another war or solved yet another issue. Well, just like what he did in Venezuela, for example. That's what's happening now, and in my opinion, his desires are among those. But what will happen after the strikes, if they are carried out? Here, we can only speculate, but I see the development of events unfolding as follows. To put it briefly, yes, indeed, these strikes could first and foremost result in the death of the Ayatollah himself. Undoubtedly, this could potentially lead us, so to speak, to certain outcomes. Movements within the political elites who govern Iran, but not to any tectonic shifts. A new set of leaders may come to power, but most importantly, whoever comes, these individuals are very likely to be significantly more willing to negotiate with the American side, which is exactly what Trump is aiming for. Is he counting on some radical changes in the country? In my opinion, that's hardly worth expecting. As an example, let me once again mention a country like Venezuela. Maduro has been captured, abducted, and is now in prison in the United States. Tell me, has this somehow radically changed the situation in Venezuela? No, it's just that those who have remained behind, and by that I mean the current government and the established local authorities, are now showing more of a willingness to cooperate with the United States than they are, for example, with China. And this, in my opinion, is actually one of those aspects that, let's say, often remains, for the most part, out of the public eye. Namely, this is the true intention of the Donald Trump administration.
So, essentially, they could still overthrow this regime, but that would be a side effect, not the main goal. In other words, at the moment, there is no goal to overthrow this regime.
Oh yes, it no longer exists. Moreover, let me remind you that in one of his interviews, Trump responded to a journalist's question by saying that if he reaches an agreement with the Ayatollah, he is perfectly fine with the current regime under the Ayatollah. You see, the issue is, it's not about regime change, not about seizing territories. So far, at least, Trump has not laid any claims to Iran as America's 43rd state. Iran is not facing the fate of Canada or Greenland.
There will be 51 and 52, yes. At first, probably.
That is not what awaits it. Iran. That's just it. If you look at it from the outside, there really aren't any clearly defined reasons, demands, or claims from the US, except, of course, the enrichment program, Iran's uranium program, and nuclear weapons. Although, let me draw your attention to the fact that Iran has been quite methodical in stating that they are ready to provide guarantees that they will not produce, let's say, weapons of mass destruction in the form of nuclear or atomic weapons.
Didn't they
right?
give these guarantees last time after the US attacks with B-2 bombers?
Apparently they have stated this. I was not present, I did not see it myself, but certainly such assurances have been made. They are being made even now. Apparently, it is possible that Iran is even ready to back them up with something more than what was done before. However, when it comes to uranium enrichment, the position of the Iranian authorities remains unshakable. And at the same time, what is happening is happening. That is, America is not claiming any territory either. At the same time, Trump says, I need to secure a deal, and then there will be no military invasion, and the Ayatollah can continue to rule freely. The political system of Iran does not fall within the sphere of Trump's interests or concerns. He, I think, absolutely doesn't care whether Iran is ruled by the Ayatollah, a Martian, or Putin. It doesn't matter. The question is not about how the world is organized there. The issue here is actually something rather banal.
So, if you're talking about a deal, as far as I understand, if the issue is a simple one, then it's about oil, it's about money, it's about trade routes, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I want to talk about, to clarify in more detail. So what is the essence, after all? We're approaching the climax of our episode. What is all this really being done for?
I'll start with Iran, since that's the topic we're discussing. Here, I consider three important aspects for which, in fact, every bit of this transformation is happening, right here before our very eyes. First of all, in my opinion, when Trump constantly talks about some kind of deal he wants to reach with Iran, I hardly think that at the forefront here is really the central issue of uranium enrichment or the potential for nuclear weapons. First and foremost, I think what we're really talking about here, in this particular context, is that Trump intends, or rather is applying significant pressure on Iran so that Iran, let's say, begins to distance itself from China's sphere of influence. That is to say, for example, Iran itself, if we look at the American energy market, plays no role at all. Whatever happens there, it doesn't affect the American market in any way, but it will affect the Chinese energy market and the region as a whole. Therefore, it seems to me that this is nothing more than an attempt to shift, so to speak, the focus of influence, to fundamentally alter the dominant side, if you will. If in a system there is a leader and a subordinate, or a manager and a subordinate, then Trump simply wants to fundamentally restructure this existing power dynamic. To put it very simply, he wants to completely substitute and replace the China-Iran relationship with a new US-Iran relationship. All of these are Trump's attempts, by and large, to systematically reduce and minimize China's strategic capacity to dominate as much as possible. Generally speaking, this applies across the world, but most significantly within the immediate Middle Eastern region. It's just that Iran, let's put it this way, is a convenient pretext. It conveniently put itself in this position. Plus, yes, you are absolutely right, there are certainly other opportunities in the region as well. What happens when intense wars break out, even if we're talking about a period of 2 or 3 weeks, or just one single week of heavy missile and bomb strikes? On the territory of a large country like Iran, let's take a close look at the map, because as we discussed last time, who are Iran's immediate neighbors, and through the vital Strait of Hormuz, this is, in principle, a critical situation. This region acts as the primary artery for oil supplies from countries like the United Arab Emirates and various other nations, passing directly through there. Consequently, as soon as such a large-scale operation begins, it is certainly worth expecting, first and foremost, significant changes in global oil prices.
This had global consequences all over the world.
Specifically Brent crude prices, of course. Next. What else could Trump realistically achieve, aside from all this? What is he striving for? All these kinds of events, strangely enough, allow him and his immediate inner circle to profit, starting with his children, who, by a strange coincidence, very quickly become billionaires. After all, what exactly happens in such a scenario? The fact is, the start of such an operation, essentially, as a rule, if it begins, will lead to quite a frenzy on the stock exchanges and securities markets. And this is Trump's natural element. That is, this will trigger speculation on the stock exchanges. Some people will be selling off stocks, others will be buying them up. But the one who succeeds will be the one who knows in advance when this machine will stop. Accordingly, this is a massive opportunity for some people to become very wealthy. Let me remind you that last year, At the very beginning of his saga with the tariff wars, when Trump would announce that he was going to impose tariffs, then cancel the decision, then announce it again. If you remember, after his first such statements, his demonstrative speech with a huge board where he was drawing various numbers, probably just making them up on the spot, sometimes increasing them, sometimes decreasing them. There was absolute frenzy in the securities market and on the exchange as a whole, you could even say panic. Trump promised tariffs, but 2 weeks later he reconsidered, saying he was giving them another chance. Furthermore, a significant number of prominent international media outlets noted that during this very specific period, some rather interesting and unusual events took place on the financial exchanges, so to speak. Certain investment companies, therefore, took a substantial risk and began to aggressively buy up large quantities of shares en masse across the market. As it later turned out, these companies were connected to Trump's children and his associates. And it was precisely during that period that his closest inner circle made truly fabulous amounts of wealth. You might say they are very, let's say, are they visionaries? No. Only people who knew in advance whether the event would or would not happen or how long it would last could have done this. This is Trump's signature style. Everything he does first and foremost for personal gain. In other words, this example has already happened before. And I think there is a high probability it will happen again in this situation. But first, and most importantly, in my personal opinion, this is clearly an attempt by Donald Trump to weaken China's global position, diminish China's international influence, and, if it is possible, reorient Iran and the entire region toward the United States of America. In other words, he is trying to create the necessary conditions and prerequisites for absolute economic and financial dominance in the entire surrounding region, which at this moment is essentially, if it's appropriate to say so, the primary domain of China. So, essentially, the strikes against Iran and the whole complex situation surrounding Iran is, in fact, a major showdown between Trump and Xi Jinping, representing a direct confrontation between the United States and China. Iran is merely a strategic tool through which Trump is actively trying to resolve this situation, to counter the broader reach of Chinese global expansion. Now let's take a look at this issue from an even broader perspective. We've already mentioned Venezuela more than once, the fight against drug cartels, the kidnapping of Maduro Greenland, which, according to Trump, is threatened by Russia and an aggressive China. Now it's Iran. What is happening with all of this? When Trump declared a fight against drug cartels, the U.S. fleet moved into the Caribbean basin. Before that, let me remind you, Trump was concerned about the Panama Canal. There have been quite a few different renamings, if you can recall correctly, of, well, geographical names. But at the same time, Trump basically managed in a rather unexpected way to push China out of control of the Panama Canal. That was his first, let's say, you could call it his first success. China was pushed out significantly. Then Trump supposedly started fighting the drug cartels. Well, at least under that pretext. Under the banner, under the guise of fighting drug cartels, Trump deployed massive forces and resources directed toward Venezuela, But let's not forget that in addition to the drug cartels and Maduro, in reality, Trump strategically positioned the fleet on one of the main maritime transport arteries. In other words, the fleet essentially blocked a critically important and massive logistical maritime channel through which vital international shipping routes from Asia, primarily from China, were operating. This included significant quantities of oil and other essential goods coming from Dagestan. Now, in a strategic shift, Trump has moved the entire fleet over to the Middle East. Here, it's perfectly clear to everyone that once again, Trump is obstructing yet another crucial and significant sector of maritime logistics. I mentioned Greenland, but for now, there's no American fleet there, and the key is for now, there isn't. In my personal opinion, when Donald Trump was very actively focusing on Greenland and talking about potential threats, it was merely a prelude to simply, based on what had already been stated earlier, move naval fleets there, supposedly to protect Greenland, Denmark, and in general, the entire European Union in the Arctic region from the devious Russia and China. I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if that fleet ends up there one day. It's just that the Europeans, I think, realize the true underlying intentions behind these actions fairly quickly. And, as we have all seen from the recent news reports, just a few weeks ago, Britain, France, Germany, and, in general, a significant number of other NATO-allied countries decided to send their powerful warships into the Arctic region. By operating as a joint group to carry out these regular and systematic patrols, they are once again working together in order to counter the continued geopolitical expansion of China and Russia. So in a way, they bypass Trump a little. But I should note, Trump isn't giving up. And just this very morning, we can read in the latest news reports that Donald Trump, as always, it seems, during the night before, perhaps during one of those sleepless nights or late evenings, he wrote a detailed post on his social media network. He stated that he is now fully ready to send a large hospital ship to the distant shores of Greenland to provide help to the thousands of Greenlanders who are currently sick and are not receiving any proper medical assistance from anyone. To Greenland. So, he's ready to send a ship. He just can't sit still. At least a hospital ship for now. Yes, of course, the leader of Greenland responded to Trump quite delicately but firmly. He reminded him that in Greenland, by the way, unlike in the United States, healthcare and medical services are free for the people of Greenland, and that is their choice. And he advised Trump, in a rather delicate way, to focus on his own problems. But nevertheless, as you can see, the attempts and ambitions are still there. So, the point I am trying to make, if I haven't confused you yet, I'll try now. To sum it all up in a very concise manner, we are witnessing Trump essentially trying to create the conditions under which the United States of America would gain absolute and total control. These paths stretch across the main logistical routes, acting as the world's vital arteries. In other words, they are the primary maritime shipping lanes that connect every corner of our global economy. He will find any reason. There, it's the fight against drug cartels. Here, it's dealing with an uncooperative Iran. In the Arctic, because of Russia and China, and if necessary, he'll find one in Africa too. He'll find a reason. He will. It's not hard to find one if you want to. Let's put it that way. If he wants to find a reason, he will. Why is this being done? It's being done essentially to establish control. This is a doctrinal aspiration of the United States. Essentially, achieving total global dominance is their fundamental doctrinal goal. But to successfully carry out and implement this doctrinal aspiration with presidents who, in my personal opinion, are adequate, is difficult to do fully. And that's exactly why America has consistently sought to pursue this strategy through certain, let's say, complex and multifaceted hybrid steps, while still largely taking into account established international rules and norms. But an unconventional political figure like Donald Trump, who, moreover, openly and publicly declares that he simply does not properly follow them, and he doesn't even consider it necessary to follow the norms of international law. And, in general, those norms that have been established and developed in the world up to now, and are, by default, accepted by all parties. He simply does not follow them. He has stated this openly. He is guided solely by his own desires, his personal decisions, and various other considerations. With such a person, implementing the doctrinal ambitions of the US in terms of hegemony is in some ways easier, since he easily crosses boundaries. But will this, let's say, lead to the expected result? I mean the expected positive result for the US? Hardly. Given the realities of today, perhaps in the last century, this might have worked. Now it's hardly possible, since economies have become transnational. The situation is changing drastically. But Trump acts more or less as if he were quite literally living 100, 200, or even 300 years ago. That is, that's why he does this, sets up, tries to establish control. You can see that the Supreme Court overturned his decision regarding tariffs. Trump is constantly trying to expand his strategic arsenal, not just to pressure his partners, but to exert control over them. If tariffs don't work and sanctions don't work, then he believes the Navy will work and the Air Force will work as well. Trump openly threatened European countries over Greenland, constantly citing Maduro as an example, saying, "You saw what we did." In other words, he gives a direct reference, as they say, sarcastically, yes, on Russia, the favorite phrase, "We can do it again." That's exactly what Trump is doing. And believe me, a missile strike on Iran, if it happens, and now there is a high probability that it really will, he will use this situation as well to intimidate. For him, it's just an element. It's a show, but his goals are completely different. First and foremost, it's about improving his own well-being and simply feeding his ego. And of course, it is also fundamentally about the relentless pursuit of absolute and unchecked power. This is clearly visible and evident not only in his actions within the borders of the United States, which, in my opinion, clearly indicate increasingly frantic and desperate attempts to usurp and consolidate power for himself. And that's why I think actually Putin is quite appealing to Trump, because by and large it seems to me that Trump envies him. He would like things to be the same way in the United States. That is, absolute power. And absolute power in the world. That's what's really happening. Everything else is just a smokescreen. Drug cartels, Iran.
As we approach the end of our conversation, every action has consequences. And isn't it possible that Trump, so to speak, might stumble over Iran? Because Iran, yes, maybe not symmetrically, but decisively and proportionally as they promise, could strike back, including against aircraft carriers, including the Abraham Lincoln, including against American bases in neighboring countries, in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, the UAE. That is, the strike could even be, so to speak, a blow to Trump's face. So we're no longer talking about proxies, which we discussed in the first episode, Hezbollah, the potential consequences for Israel, and so on. In other words, it is possible that he will strike and then immediately run away, just as we have already discussed. Or perhaps it will be like the situation in Mexico, where United States intelligence agencies helped to kill and capture El Mencho, who was the notorious head of the powerful criminal cartel. And now, from 20 to 40% of the country is affected by a kind of uprising of the drug cartels. So far, of course, there is no indication that they will seize power, but nevertheless unrest has begun, an armed uprising, the police. In many cities, the police have been destroyed, at least partially. Stores are being looted, and so on. What I mean is that every action has consequences in the world. And what consequences will there be, for example, regarding Iran? Or what about the specific situation involving Mexico? We can briefly touch upon this point as we are concluding our discussion today.
You are absolutely right, of course. Every action, as we know, has its consequences. When it comes to Trump's actions regarding Iran, in my opinion, the consequences of these actions, if we really think about it, can be quite significant and far-reaching. We proceed from the assumption that If military strikes against Iran are eventually carried out, the resulting consequences will be quite profound and far-reaching. They will be incredibly significant for the entire region, of course, and I truly think for Donald Trump himself and for the world overall. For the world, the consequences will be significant. How quickly they will come and to what extent, let's say, the seriousness of the consequences will affect one country or another. It's difficult to say at this point in time, but the fact that the consequences will happen is inevitable. And in my opinion, they will be far from favorable. First and foremost, for Trump himself. After all, let me remind you once again, Trump's situation overall, within the borders of his own country, is very difficult, to put it mildly. To inflict, to bring in a fleet, to assemble such a huge strike group, you have to understand this is money. And this is the money of American taxpayers. And right now, we're talking about a massive amount of money, measured in billions, and by the end of the operation, possibly reaching hundreds of billions of dollars. It depends on how long it will last and when it will end. Because in addition to the fleets being there, there are people, that's salaries, depreciation, fuel. Every time a plane takes off, that's fuel. And so on and so forth. These are launched missiles. Calculate the cost of a single Tomahawk missile. Calculate the cost of an air-to-ground missile that an F-15 or F-18 can launch, or an F-22, and so on. All of this is money. And it's truly a huge amount of money. And, at least for now, it's actually very hard to fully understand what specific benefits exactly the American people will ultimately get from this. In other words, this money can easily be spent, and that's just for a moment. We're not even talking yet about the possibility that a certain number, maybe even a significant number of zinc coffins could come back to the United States of America. And that would truly be an absolute disaster for Trump's reputation, because let me remind you once again, according to recent polls, the overwhelming majority of people, primarily those who are supporters of Trump's political line, the MAGA movement and the Republican Party, do not view the idea of any kind of military intervention in a positive light. In fact, most of them are strongly opposed to such actions. They are more comfortable with the fleet stationed off the US coast and everything remaining quiet. And besides, they have real problems in the United States of America, so how will they explain these expenses afterwards? And again, the effect is difficult to predict. This could lead to a significant transformation, as I already mentioned, to a certain shift within the ruling elites. I'm not sure this will lead to major tectonic shifts. No, I really doubt it. All the more so you are becoming, and you are witnessing the fact that there have been reports that student unrest is starting again. Well, in truth, it's on the occasion of the anniversary of the death. That is, 40 days since the death of protesters in Iran. 40 days since a person's death is, let's say, a date that is marked in the sense that the relatives of the deceased gather and so on. But here there are so many casualties, so mass student unrest has begun. Yes, before this, we saw from various different news sources that there was reports and information circulating that approximately thousands of, let's say, Starlink stations had been illegally brought into Iran. There is no absolutely definitive confirmation of this information, but I admit that, undoubtedly, American intelligence and special services could have been directly involved in this situation, so to speak, to create certain conditions favorable for executing a targeted strike, or let's say, for creating certain movements within the country, again, to weaken the regime and to carry out actions that would benefit certain invading forces. That could have happened. But again, whether this will lead to the complete collapse of the regime or not is hard to say right now. We can all see that Iran is also taking measures. Iran has announced that a plan for decentralizing military command has already been developed. According to reports, the Ayatollah has already designated several individuals who should replace him in the event of his death. In other words, not just one, but several people. Therefore, in my opinion, the more likely scenario here, as I mentioned earlier, is approximately what happened in Venezuela. Yes, the chances of the Ayatollah himself holding on are extremely slim in the event of a strike, unless he is evacuated to a specific neighboring country we know, which has a well-known reputation for taking in fleeing dictators. Then, of course, the issue with the Ayatollah could be resolved. But fundamentally changing the situation on the ground, in my opinion, is hardly something the US will be able to achieve. The only thing that will work out, and I think this is the calculation, is that those who take over the country afterward will simply start cooperating with the United States of America. Because I would like to repeat this point once more, from my own personal point of view, the only real goal behind all of these various strategic US actions actually toward Iran is it's a deliberate attempt to redirect the entire region, its entire market, to make it financially and economically dependent on the US rather than being reliant on China. Iran is simply a convenient pretext. It's just the most clearly visible target available. For example, it's difficult, at least for now, in my opinion, to start putting pressure on someone else in this region, because there are no obvious reasons for that. But Iran, yes.
So don't you really see some clear double standards at play here? Maduro was also, we're already wrapping up our conversation, Maduro was also illegitimate, Ali Khamenei is illegitimate, but in principle, we can talk to him about something and so on. So then the pursuit of peaceful uranium enrichment processes. This essentially means, why can't they, if they supposedly, officially and publicly declare that it's only for peaceful purposes, for nuclear power plants, even to significantly decrease their heavy reliance on Russia? There have been such interesting assumptions and statements, including from Iran. Modern technology is continuously developing and evolving. Yes, the Vorony regime is completely illegitimate and fundamentally anti-democratic, but Trump seems not to care about these undemocratic regimes. To provide a clear example of this, the Lukashenko regime is also notoriously anti-democratic. At the same time, he openly invites Lukashenko to his peace council and so on. But that's a completely different topic. But the point is about double standards. Don't you really think they're present here? That the United States government first says one thing, then another. And in general, these official statements often quite directly contradict each other.
I completely understand your point, and indeed that perspective is very much justified. But let me repeat once more, in my opinion, just a little bit. In some respects, we really need to distinguish between the United States and Trump. For now, Trump is. The thing is, we are seeing attempts to usurp power in the US. It cannot really be said, with any certainty, that the overwhelming majority of Democrats or Republicans. It is often quite difficult for most people to truly share or even begin to see the complex building of diplomatic relations with other foreign countries in the exact same way that Donald Trump does. This is his personal approach, and that of his administration, but Trump will continue in this manner. After all, let me repeat. Trump is not a politician. There is such a word in Russian. He's just an ordinary hustler who eventually found himself in the influential position he held after successfully seizing power. And his methods are the same. And that remains a major question. That is, Trump has an entourage that, by taking full advantage of his peculiarities and flaws, actively seeks to advance its own interests. That's why they support him. because Trump's actions allow them to enrich themselves even more. But that doesn't mean that all the political institutions of the United States of America, parties, citizens, do they really see building relationships this way, or do they consider such an approach to be correct? Yes, you're right, Trump absolutely doesn't care who he's dealing with. I honestly believe that he would willingly make deals with the devil, and it wouldn't bother his conscience in the slightest that he was making a deal with the devil. The main thing here is that this particular deal actually gives him and opens up for him a real window of opportunity for personal enrichment, and it also guarantees his immunity. After all, this is a drive for absolute power. Often, it is also dictated by the fact that a person does not want to bear responsibility. That is, he is afraid that if he ever does have to bear it, it will end badly for him. And by the way, this is the fear of every dictator, and this is Trump's fear. And he doesn't care, you're absolutely right, who he talks to. Moreover, it's not exactly what it is appropriate to call Trump a respectable or reliable partner. Yes, you're right, he has previously held various diplomatic talks with Belarus. He is currently conducting them. Maybe he will do so again, or perhaps with some other country that has an authoritarian type of government. But that doesn't mean that this autocrat or dictator or ruler has become his friend and ally. No, he will just as easily betray him. Exactly at the moment when all the benefits that can be gained from this person are exhausted. Or if, let's put it this way, something doesn't sit well with Trump himself.
I suggest we talk about this next time, in more detail about how Trump might continue to hold on to power and by how legal means. Won't he be afraid for his life? Recently we have seen several breaking reports that a man was shot at the private Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida, which is the famous estate where Donald Trump often spends his weekends. Earlier there were reports that people had been shot at the White House, on the White House grounds, or near the White House. People a few months ago and so on. The assassination attempt on Trump that happened during the election campaign. I suggest we talk about all of this next time because the situation is developing in a very interesting way. And Mexico, I think as well, will also touch on the developing events in the world. Well, to wrap up now, I'll give you the floor for a lyrical digression if you have one. And to finish, here's an interesting fact. As is tradition, the launch of a single Tomahawk. Currently for the US, that's about $2 to $2.5 million. Including production and modernization. So basically $2 million for one missile. We're not even counting the cost of launching it. As you mentioned, salaries, the fleet, fuel, transporting everything and so on.
Just imagine for a moment that an aircraft carrier group is fully capable of launching 200 to 300 missiles in one single salvo. It's incredibly straightforward to immediately calculate how much financial resources instantly leave the budget. And the final result is highly uncertain and debatable, making it very hard to predict. In your previous question, you touched on the topic of nuclear weapons in general and so on, which is a very complex subject to discuss. And I have previously said that it is precisely the actions of someone like Trump that could lead to a real Third World War. Therefore, in this regard, I would like to make a small remark and ask everyone to think about this. Before we begin, I would like to state that as I express my thoughts now, I am abstracting myself from, let's say, a wide variety of different frameworks, ideological, religious, and moral. I am merely discussing the details of the dry, purely logical and objective situation. Please notice that Trump and his current actions are leading to the systematic dismantling of all diplomatic ties between America and its long-standing international allies. So what used to guarantee nuclear security? Essentially, it was the bipolar world. There were the different nations in the former Soviet bloc, and there were countries in the US bloc. And fundamentally speaking, the nuclear arsenals of the two superpower nations served as formidable guarantees of security for their, let's say, satellites and allies. There was no real necessity, let's say, for each satellite to manufacture such powerful weapons as nuclear or thermonuclear arms, and so on. First of all, it's technologically very intricate. You really need to have the scientific potential for that. But even if you have it, it's a very expensive undertaking. To help you understand, deploying a silo-based ICBM is an incredibly costly project, because in addition to the silos themselves, you must also factor in at least 2 entire cities being constructed in the nearby vicinity. In other words, it's a city-forming military facility, plus several auxiliary thermal power plants. Can you imagine what kind of sums we're talking about? So these countries did not take on those expenses. The world has certainly changed, but at the same time, for the Western world, America and its guarantors, according to the NATO concept, remained absolutely fundamental, and no one ever really questioned it. No one thought about creating their own nuclear weapons. The situation has changed. We can already see that even in the Republic of Poland, there are openly voices and opinions being expressed about the necessity, in principle even about having their own nuclear weapons. Germany is talking about it, everyone is starting to talk about it. And in this particular context, if we examine it purely from a logical standpoint, let's take a look at Iran. Iran borders Pakistan. Pakistan is a nuclear state. Does it live without problems? No. It is a rather peculiar state, and it is not always quite as stable as some would like to present it. Israel. It possesses nuclear weapons. That is, in such a situation created by Trump, if we look at it purely from a human, logical perspective, to demand from someone not to develop atomic energy or the creation of nuclear weapons for any purpose, in my opinion, it's illogical. And who will give guarantees? For example, to Iran, that it won't be attacked. Right now, the US wants to attack. And then the question arises, Donald Trump, aren't you concerned about North Korea having nuclear weapons, even though North Korea's ballistic missiles are capable of reaching the shores and cities of the US?
In North Korea, it's the same kind of racket.
In my humble opinion, and once again, I truly want to apologize if my personal thought has somehow offended anyone listening, but I am simply trying to express it as clearly and plainly as possible, without any specific reference to moral, ethnic, or religious frameworks of any kind. Of course, I absolutely and completely understand that there are many different perspectives to consider here. So what exactly is the Ayatollah regime? And what is the danger? Of course, it is deeply concerning and truly terrible, and it is completely abnormal when the doctrine of a state, in particular Iran, its state strategy, explicitly states and declares that their ultimate goal is the total destruction of another sovereign state, Israel, that is essentially an entire nation. That is what's truly terrible. It is precisely in this context that people, or countries that actively advocate for and promote genocidal ideas, doing so quite openly and explicitly, meaning that they see the total destruction of a certain nation or state as the primary objective and ultimate goal of their existence and development. From this point of view, it can be stated without a single doubt. Such states should not possess such powerful and destructive weapons as nuclear ones, thermonuclear and so on. That is exactly why. But if we strip everything away and get to the very core and bare essence, I'm just trying to explain how incredibly destructive Trump's actions are. After all, this remains a fundamental question. That a great many individuals are frequently asking this question, including those who do not share our views, our aspirations, or our general perspective on the world. They are also asking the question, because Pandora's box has been opened. If before there were specific algorithms and rules, Trump destroyed them. And now a legitimate question arises. Who has the right to forbid me? I can't rely on anyone. So this is one of the trends, one of the consequences that Trump's actions can lead to. That is to say, his aggressive, on the one hand, aggressive stance toward all of his partners, his destructive actions in systematically breaking all ties, his wars against everyone, essentially force states to reconsider. In other words, they can no longer be fully confident in previous guarantees. And now they themselves are starting to think about acquiring nuclear weapons to strengthen, in some areas, their own military capabilities and so on. And Trump's destructive activities continue. By the way, just recently, the 47th president spoke out very harshly and negatively. He expressed his dissatisfaction with Taiwan, accusing Taiwan of practically stealing from the United States huge sums of money since they produce chips and the technology was given to them by the United States. He modestly keeps quiet about the fact that during his first term, this was actually one of the things Trump himself was accused of. If we take a moment to recall the debates between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, she openly and directly accused Trump of the following. She pointed to the transfer of highly sensitive information in the critical field of technology, specifically within the area of chip manufacturing, which was allegedly sent to China through Taiwan. And now Trump is accusing Taiwan. Here is a fresh example of destructive activity for you. And now imagine that you are a citizen of Taiwan, and after such statements, can you really be sure that the United States of America will fulfill the previously made commitments to protect you in the event of potential acts of aggression from China? You are hardly going to be confident in that now. It is precisely the specific kinds of actions taken by Trump that bring the world to the brink of disaster. Long-standing international alliances are destroyed, and the trust between nations is completely broken. And everyone is forced to think only of themselves or to form new alliances. That is how I would ask. That is how I would end my speech. And I would strongly encourage everyone to think about just how important and valuable it is to be consistent, to be a responsible person, and to always honor the agreements we make, even in your personal life. And then success will follow you. Good luck to you, our viewers. Thank you for your attention. I hope to see you again next time.
By the way, thank you very much for this important addition, the digression, and especially for that last important remark. Unfortunately, when you look at what's happening in the world, at the global hegemon, you could say it's hard for others to follow that example for now, but everyone decides for themselves how to act and what to do. Thank you again very much, and see you in the next podcast.
See you soon. Have a great day.